Have you ever been driving down the highway, minding your own business, when a massive 18-wheeler rolls past you, and you notice something that just looks completely wrong? One of the truck's axles is hanging up in the air, tires not even touching the road. And you think to yourself, is that thing broken? Did the driver forget to put it down? Is this legal? Well, do not worry. You are not alone. Thousands of people see this every single day and have absolutely no idea what is going on. Hi, my name is Jeremy, and this is Trucks United, the channel where we break down everything in the world of trucks, from the engineering decisions that shape them to the regulations that govern them, and all the weird and wonderful things in between. What is a lift axle? Before we get into the why, we need to understand the what. And to do that, we need to talk about truck axles in general, because not all axles are created equal, and that is something a lot of people do not realize. An axle is essentially a rod or shaft that connects two wheels and supports the weight of the vehicle. Simple enough. But on a heavy truck, you can have several different types of axles, all doing very different jobs at the same time. First, you have your steering axles. These are located at the front of the truck, and they are exactly what they sound like. They help the driver steer the vehicle. Some trucks also have rear steering axles to create a tighter turning radius, which is incredibly useful in tight urban environments. Then you have your drive axles. These are the ones at the rear of the truck that actually receive power from the engine and push the truck forward. On most big rigs, you will find a tandem drive axle setup, meaning two drive axles sitting right next to each other at the back. After that, you have tag axles, which sit at the very rear of the vehicle and exist purely to provide extra support for heavy loads. Think of them as the muscle that keeps everything from dragging on the ground. And then, finally, you have the lift axle, also sometimes called a liftable axle, a pusher axle, or a tag axle, depending on who you are talking to and where in the world you are. This axle can be raised completely off the ground or lowered down to make contact with the road. It is connected to the truck's air suspension system and controlled by a simple switch right there in the cab. The driver flicks that switch, and the axle either goes up or comes down. That is it. No tools required, no pit stop, just a switch. So no, the truck is not broken. The driver absolutely knows it is up there. And yes, it is 100% legal. In fact, it is not just legal, it is smart. A brief history of lift axles. Now you might be wondering, when did this whole idea even come about? Who looked at a truck and thought, you know what this thing needs? A wheel that does not touch the ground? The concept of liftable axles has actually been around since the mid-20th century, but it really started gaining serious traction from the 1970s and the 1980s onward. As trucks got heavier, as cargo demands grew, and as governments started cracking down harder on road damage caused by overloaded vehicles, engineers needed a smarter solution. The problem was straightforward. Trucks were getting bigger and heavier. Roads were getting more expensive to repair. Governments started putting strict limits on how much weight each individual axle could carry, and the trucking industry had to adapt. The original solution was simple: add more axles to spread the weight. But more axles mean more rolling resistance, and more rolling resistance means more fuel burned. More fuel burned means higher operating costs. And if the truck is running empty or with a light load, all those extra axles are just dead weight doing nothing useful. So the lift axle was the elegant answer to a very expensive problem. Use the extra axles when you need them, lift them up when you do not. It sounds almost too obvious when you say it out loud, but the engineering behind making it reliable, safe, and easy enough for a driver to operate with a single switch took real work. And today, Lift axles are standard equipment on a huge variety of heavy trucks all around the world. The weight and regulations game. All right, this is where things get really interesting. And honestly, this is the part that most people never think about when they see a truck rolling down the highway. Behind every lifted axle is a very complicated game of numbers, laws, and compliance. Here is the core issue. In the United States, federal regulations under the Federal Highway Administration set limits on how much weight can be placed on any single axle. As a general rule, a single axle cannot carry more than 20,000 pounds. A tandem axle, meaning two axles spaced close together, cannot carry more than 34,000 pounds combined. And the total gross vehicle weight of a standard truck and trailer combination is capped at 80,000 pounds. Now here is where the lift axle earns its place. When you add an additional axle to the equation, you are allowed to carry more total weight because that weight is now being spread across more axles. The road sees less concentrated pressure per axle, which means less damage to the surface. The government sees a vehicle that is technically within legal limits per axle. And the trucker gets to haul more cargo in a single trip. But the flip side is also true. When that truck is running empty or carrying a light load, having all those axles dragging along the ground is just wasteful. Every axle that rolls on the road creates rolling resistance, which the engine has to work against. That burns fuel. And in the trucking industry, fuel is one of the single biggest operating costs a company faces. Different countries handle this differently, by the way. In Europe, the regulations are similarly strict, and lift axles are just as common. In Australia, where road trains can have multiple trailers and total weights that would make an American trucker's eyes water, axle management becomes an even more critical part of the operation. The rules change depending on where you are, but the fundamental logic is always the same. More axles when loaded, fewer axles when not. And here is a fun detail that most people do not think about. Getting caught with the wrong axle configuration, either running lifted when you should be down, or running all axles when the weight does not require it, and you are crossing a bridge with load restrictions, can result in serious fines. Some jurisdictions are very aggressive about enforcement. Weigh stations exist specifically to catch violations. So that switch in the cab is not just a convenience. It is a compliance tool. Okay, so now we know what lift axles are, and we know the regulatory side of things. Let us really dig into the practical, day-to-day reasons why drivers use them. Because there are more reasons than most people realize. The most obvious one is fuel efficiency. Every tire that rolls on the road creates friction, and friction costs fuel. When a truck is running empty or with a very light load, lifting the axle eliminates that rolling resistance entirely. Studies and real-world data from fleet operators consistently show that lifting an unloaded axle can improve fuel economy meaningfully over the course of a long haul. And when you are talking about a truck that might cover 500,000 kilometers in its working life, those savings add up to a genuinely significant amount of money. Then there is tire wear. Tires on a heavy truck are expensive. We are not talking about the $40 tire you put on your family car. A single commercial truck tire can cost several $100s, and a truck has a lot of them. Every kilometer that an axle rolls unnecessarily is wearing down that rubber. Lift the axle, save the tire. It is that simple. And over the lifespan of a fleet, the savings on tire replacement costs alone can justify the entire cost of installing lift axles in the first place. Next up, traction and grip. This one is a little counterintuitive. When a truck is fully loaded and driving through wet, icy, or muddy conditions, Lowering the lift axle and spreading the vehicle's weight across more tires actually improves traction significantly. More tires on the ground means more rubber in contact with the surface, which means better grip. Some manufacturers like Volvo have even developed automated tandem axle lift functions that detect slippery conditions and automatically lower the lift axle to improve grip without the driver having to think about it. That is smart engineering right there. Road damage is another major factor, and this one is actually a big deal from a public infrastructure standpoint. A heavily loaded truck exerts enormous pressure on the road surface. If that weight is concentrated on fewer axles, the pressure per square inch goes up dramatically, and the road surface deteriorates faster. By spreading the load across more axles, you reduce the ground pressure at any single point. That means less road damage, lower public maintenance costs, and ultimately fewer potholes for the rest of us to complain about. You are welcome. There is also the question of braking. When a truck is fully loaded and needs to stop quickly, every single tire that is in contact with the road contributes to braking force. More tires down means more braking power. It means shorter stopping distances. It means a safer outcome in an emergency situation. And on a vehicle that might weigh 40 tons or more when fully loaded, stopping distance is not a small consideration. It is the difference between a near miss and a catastrophe. And finally, stability. When you are navigating a corner or making a sudden lane change or dealing with a crosswind on an open highway, having more tires on the road increases the stability of the entire vehicle. The weight is distributed more evenly, the center of gravity is better managed, and the risk of a rollover decreases. For drivers spending 12 hours at a stretch on the road, that stability is not just a comfort thing, it is a safety thing, how the system actually works. So, how does a driver actually raise and lower one of these axles? From the outside, it looks almost like magic. The wheel just floats up into the air and hangs there. What is actually happening mechanically? The answer is AIR, specifically AIR suspension. Lift axles are connected to the truck's existing air suspension system. Inside the mechanism are airbags, essentially heavy-duty inflatable cushions that can be pressurized or deflated on demand. When the driver activates the lift switch in the cab, compressed air is pumped into these airbags. The bags inflate, expand, and physically push the axle upward off the ground. The whole process takes just a few seconds. When the driver needs the axle back down, for example, if they have just picked up a full load and need the extra support, they hit the switch again. The air is released from the bags. The axle drops back down under the weight of the truck, and the suspension settles it firmly onto the road surface. Modern systems are increasingly automated. Sensors can detect load weight and automatically lower lift axles when a certain threshold is reached, ensuring the truck is always in the optimal configuration without the driver having to monitor it manually. Some systems also include safety overrides that prevent a driver from lifting an axle when the load is too heavy, removing the human error element in regulatory compliance. It is honestly a beautifully simple system when you break it down. A bit of air, a switch, and suddenly, a wheel floats off the ground like something out of a science fiction movie. But there is nothing fictional about it. It is just good engineering solving a real problem. Which trucks use them and why? Lift axles are not exclusive to any single type of truck. You will find them across a wide range of heavy vehicles, each using them for slightly different reasons. Long-haul trucks use them primarily for the fuel efficiency and weight compliance reasons we already covered. Dump trucks use them because they operate in an extreme range of weight conditions, fully loaded with earth or gravel one moment, completely empty the next. Concrete mixer trucks benefit from them for similar reasons. and also because they frequently operate in urban environments where road weight restrictions are more common. Construction vehicles, logging trucks, flatbed haulers, and tanker trucks. The lift axle shows up across the industry wherever the payload varies significantly, and compliance with axle weight laws is a constant concern. Even some fire trucks and specialized emergency vehicles use versions of liftable axle technology. So the next time you are stuck behind a concrete mixer at a red light and you notice one of its wheels hanging in the air, just remember, that is not a breakdown. That is engineering doing exactly what it was designed to do. To bring it all together, the reason some truck tires do not touch the ground is not because something is broken, not because the driver made a mistake, and definitely not because trucks are trying to confuse the rest of us on the highway. It is because modern heavy trucks operate across an enormous range of loading conditions. And lift axles give drivers and fleet operators a smart, efficient, cost-effective tool to adapt their trucks to whatever situation they are in, whether that is an empty return run on the interstate or a fully loaded haul across challenging terrain. They save fuel, they save tires, they protect roads, they improve safety, and they keep trucks on the right side of the law when it comes to axle weight regulations. Honestly, for something that just looks like a wheel hanging in the air, the lift axle is doing a lot of heavy lifting, figuratively speaking, of course. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever spotted a truck with a lifted axle on the road and wondered what was going on? Drop a comment below and let us know. If you learned something new today, make sure you hit that subscribe button for much more trucking content right here on Trucks United. We will see you in the next one.